מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא יחסר, בנודש ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי ישובב, ינחני במגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צאן מוות, לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צורריי. דשנת בשם מראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבת בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
As Cantorshipmen began our service chanting Psalm 23 in the Hebrew, please join with me Psalm 23 in the English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yishem Adonai mevarach. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. These are the only words that we can recite this day as we grieve the passing of Janice, beloved wife, mother, grandmother, aunt, cousin and friend, and sister. It's hard to comprehend that Janice is gone. She has been taken from us much too soon. Taken from this world while she still had much more love to give, much more joy to celebrate, many more lessons to teach her family, more legacy to give. We cannot understand or explain why she was taken from us. Why now? Paul, as you said to me many times, this is not the way it's supposed to be. We are left to submit ourselves to accepting the reality that God has placed before us, and to seek to hold on to Janice as tightly and closely as possible through the gift of memory, to cherish moments spent together, words spoken, feelings that welled up inside, feelings of love, respect, honor, admiration, friendship, and to seek to be nurtured by her presence that is still with you, with all of us, even now. We are here to gather strength from each other by sharing in those memories, seeking to find comfort in the gifts that Janice gave to all that she knew and loved. I'm going to call upon three speakers to share memories and reflections. First, Janice's son Bart, and then her grandson Ben, and then her good friend Arlene Steele, a friend from childhood. Bart?
Good morning. What a great turnout on such a lovely day. I'm here today to talk about fitted sheets. No, not regular sheets. Everybody can fold those. I'm here today to talk about fitted sheets. Why? There's a commercial on TV. I live in Central Illinois. I don't know if it's regional or national, but there's a commercial that makes fun of guys who don't know how to fold fitted sheets. I stand here today before God and all of you to tell you that I know how to properly fold a fitted sheet. Why? Because of this wonderful woman right here, Janice Cheryl Bonin Greenberger. She taught Marcy and me that the little things matter. She went by many names. She went by wife, 52 years to Paul, daughter-in-law to Joe Greenberger, mom to Marcy and me. Janice, to my wife Pamela, she went by Bubby, Hebrew for grandmother, to my kids Hannah and Ben, Aunt Janice and Cousin Janice to many, and probably, most importantly, friend to almost everybody in this room. You know who wouldn't call her a friend right now? It's the Grim Reaper. I can almost assure you he is out taking a nap right now because he had to work real hard to get Janice. Janice was a fighter. Grim Reaper came calling about 20 years ago when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She beat it. Dad's humor, Dad standing by her side, she beat it. Even though her health wasn't the greatest over the next 15, 18 years, Reaper left her alone. Then it all started in 2015. Heart surgery was needed. Pacemaker was put in. Also in 2015, a hysterectomy, which it's a darn good thing because Mom and Dad were thinking about having another kid. No, probably not. We had to cancel her 70th birthday party. Her health declined, but she kept fighting. Reaper probably thought he had her earlier this year when she had to have emergency appendectomy, then another back surgery, and then more back procedures. You can bet the Reaper was losing patience, but Mom kept fighting. Mom had lots of gevurah, which my rabbi taught me is inner strength, both stubbornness as well as self-motivation. And she had a lot of that as well. In fact, the last 4 months, gevurah has been our motto. In September, we were told she had a form of ovarian cancer. She was told at best 5 years. She was determined to fight. The surgery that took place in early October was a doozy, but damn, she was going to beat it. Unfortunately, the cancer spread before her body could get healthy enough for chemo, and Mr. Grim Reaper finally thought he had won. Mom had other plans. She went 2 weeks without food, very little water for 3, and it wasn't until her 29th day of hospice that she finally gave in. The original diagnosis was 7 to 10 days. Mr. Reaper won, but Mom was a fighter. Please don't feel sorry for her, though. Other than the last 3 to 4 years of pain, she lived a great life. Last Monday, a week ago today, my parents celebrated their 52nd anniversary. Dad stood by her side for every surgery, every procedure, every doctor's appointment. They were both born right here in Cleveland, married in '66, and in 1979, Dad had a great opportunity work-wise. We moved to St. Louis. Dad retired several years ago, and you know why they still live in St. Louis? Because Dad wanted to move to Florida, Mom wanted to move to California. They couldn't decide on anywhere else, so they stayed in the middle of the country. Here's something else funny about the two of them. Every 4 years, Mom would tell Marcy and me she would vote just to cancel out Dad's vote. They may not have agreed on everything, but they loved each other very much. Now, I would like to dispel a myth right here, right now. Even though I claim to be the favorite child, that's just not true. And neither is Marcy. And I know what you're thinking, well, of course she doesn't have a favorite child. She even said so in a somewhat lucid moment in hospice. but don't be fooled. She had a favorite. My wife, Pamela, is my mom's favorite because she gave Mom and Dad 2 wonderful grandchildren. Forget the fact that I helped. Nope, Mom seemed to forget that. Nope, Pamela is her favorite. She adored her grandchildren. She loved hearing from them. In fact, Mom resisted texting for the longest time. And then she found out that the best way to talk to her grandchildren was via text. She started texting. She loved getting calls from them, and I would hear about it all the time. Mom has one sister, Andrea. They spoke often. She and Aaron, they would visit as much as they can. As years got on and both of their health declined a little, they talked even more. They shared stories of the kids, of the grandkids, and don't forget the granddogs and the grandcats. Mom never had a brother. Well, sort of. She met Dad when she was only 16 years old. Dad had 2 younger siblings, Arlene, about a year and a half younger, and Dennis, who was only about 8 or 9 when Mom came into the picture. Mom would talk fondly of the card games with Fred and Arlene. Fred is Arlene's husband, and my parents when they were all newlyweds. But she also told me that Dennis was the brother that she never had. Dennis told me a great story this month. When my father's father passed 52 years ago, it was 3 weeks before my parents' wedding, it was raining the day of the funeral. Mom, still a young adult, but wise beyond her years at 21, consoled Dennis and told him, when it's raining during a funeral, even God is crying. Dennis and Dee Dee remembered that story, shared it with me and Marcy, and when they left the hospice for the last time about 3 weeks ago, in St. Louis, it was snowing huge, puffy flakes. I ran out to the lobby and said, hey guys, Mom's crying. A couple days later, he texted me. It had rained really hard in Southern California. There was a beautiful rainbow. Dee Dee sent us a picture of it. God was still crying. It's not a surprise that the forecast today is for rain, because I assure you God is crying today. Mom was always thinking of other people. A couple years ago, I started wearing bow ties. Mom went to her favorite knit shop, found a pattern, found a beautiful red pattern or yarn for my beloved St. Louis Cardinals baseball. She knitted me a simple red bow tie. Yes, it's the one I'm wearing right now. I've been wearing it for years to honor my mom. Over the years, she has gone back and knitted 3, 4 different. She has sewn me a couple of others. I wear them proudly. This high holiday service, for those that don't know, I am hair challenged, and I complained to my mom that the yarmulke kept falling off my head at the high holidays. Without asking, about a week later, a yarmulke shows up in the mail. I thanked her. Next time I wore it, I told her what I liked and what I didn't like about it. That yarmulke is on my son's head today. 2 weeks later, 2 more yarmulkes show up in the mail. This one and another one, a blue one, so I have a red, a white, and a blue to match any outfit I had. And when I called to thank her, she just said, I was just using up my good yarn. That was my mom. Many times I'd call my mom. Now this was after the invention of caller ID. And she would answer the phone, yo. I learned this month that she did that with my sister as well. Marcy and I loved it. The beginning of December, we had gotten the bad news. I knew I didn't have many phone calls left. I called Mom. She was still in the hospital. And as soon as she answered the phone, I said, yo. And she said, yo. And I'm going to miss that. During that conversation, I got very serious. I said, Mom, do you and Dad have everything in order, all your affairs? She says, yep, it's all taken care of. I let her know, though, that it wasn't too late to change the will and she could still leave me everything. Well, she said, yes, dear. So, Marcy, I'm sorry to say I'm getting everything. Mom said so. Marcy reminded me of one of Mom's favorite sayings, life isn't fair. Mom taught us that in life, and she certainly taught us that in death. One of the greatest memories Marcy and I are going to have is the fact that when Mom passed, we were by her side, holding each of her hands. That's something that we're going to cherish for a long time. I'd be remiss if I didn't tell one of my favorite stories. I'm 9 years old. We've just moved to St. Louis. Mom is sitting on the couch, and I am playing the How Close Can You Come game. You know, you take a swing, and how close can you get to Mom's nose? Well, Mom wasn't paying much attention. She leaned forward right as I swung, and I might have decked my mom in the eye. Mom started crying. As a 9-year-old, I started crying, only to find out that the tears were of laughter. She immediately recognized the humor in being decked by her 9-year-old son. Mom gets up, regains her composure, and after a moment, then she got mad. But she didn't get mad at me. She yelled at Dad for teaching me such a game. We've been able to laugh at that for years, and I tried not to teach my kids that or any other games, but I am a spitting image of my father, and I'm sure I taught my kids other games. You don't have to agree with that, Uncle Marv. I'd like to read you 2 of Mom's poems. They're both very short, but the reason for this is this came up in hospice. Benjamin and I were about to turn off the lights one night. Between my sister, my daughter, Benjamin, and I, we were taking turns spending the night in the hospice room if she needed water, if she needed her back scratched, whatever she might need. Lights are about to go off. Benjamin said something, and I said, I'm hiding, and no one knows where. And Benjamin and I had a laugh about it, but we couldn't remember the rest of the poem. My mom, in a foggy state, proceeded to go word by word almost the entire poem. So I read to you the poem that my mom used to read to Marcy and me when we were kids, and to Hannah and Ben, my kids, when they were young. Dorothy Keeley Aldous, I'm hiding. I'm hiding, and no one knows where, for all they can see is my toes and my hair. And I just heard Father say to my mother, but darling, he must be somewhere or other. Have you looked in the inkwell? In the inkwell, said Father. But I was not there. Then wait, cried my mother, I think that I see him under the carpet, but it was not me. Inside the mirror's a pretty good place, said Father and looked, but saw only his face. We've hunted, sighed Mother, as hard as we could, and I'm so afraid that we've lost him for good. Then I laughed out loud and I wiggled my toes, and Father said, look, dear, I wonder if those toes could be Benny's. There are 10 of them, see? And they were so surprised to find out it was me. That led to the other poem, the 3-line poem that Mom used to read to her 2 kids and her grandkids. Ah, baby, Mommy is a lady, Daddy is a bum. Her grandmother, she did not write that. Her grandmother used to sing that to her 70 years ago. She remembered it all these years, sang it to us, and it means so much to us. As many of you know, Mom loved parties. She couldn't wait to throw a party for any occasion. When I was graduating college, I told her I might not fly back to Indiana for the graduation, and I quote, the hell you will. It's your $50,000 education, it's my party. Needless to say, I walked at graduation and Mom had her party. I mentioned earlier we had to cancel her 70th party, so today I ask you, please consider this Janice's party. She wouldn't want us to be sad. She'd want us to remember what a great person she was to everyone in this room, everyone who has the privilege to watch. Tell stories about her. Laugh. Remember the legacy that she left behind. By keeping her in your thoughts, in your heart, and in your soul, she will live on forever. She taught us life isn't fair, and she taught us the little things do matter, like how to properly fold a fitted sheet. To my mom, I say I love you, and yo.
So I would like to first off thank everyone for coming today. I'm going to try and keep this as brief as possible because, let's be honest, if we delay any cards from being played, my bubby would have thought it a tragedy, and I do not want that to happen. Cards are actually the thing I'm going to remember most about my bubby. I have sat across from her in countless hands of rummy, solitaire, and eventually gin over the years, and she taught me gin, and we stuck with it for years and years. She always loved when I came to town because she finally had someone to play cards against, and she explained to me that Grandpa stopped playing cards with her after a couple of years, and that always confused me because I had no idea. They were married, they were retired, why wouldn't they play cards together? That confusion lasted about 3 or 4 hands into the first game we ever played. My Bubby is the most caring, loving, and sweetest person you will ever know until you are looking across from her at a card table. Watch out. When she starts to set up a bridge hand when she's supposed to be playing gin, that's when you know you're really in trouble. Needless to say, I didn't win many hands over the years, but don't worry, it's not because I'm bad at gin. Right, Grandpa? But even though I may have taken a beating every time we played, I never turned down a game. Bubby turning off the TV and asking me if I was ready to lose was her way of getting alone time with me. After we moved to Central Illinois, she didn't get that much alone time with her grandkids, and we know she really loved that. So she would use those games to talk about school, talk about baseball, anything she knew we could discuss for a long time. She would take any excuse to do it. And considering we knew the outcome of the game going in, it was the conversations I looked forward to the most. Another thing I loved about my Bubby, and I'll never forget, she was the kind of person who would be there for any event whatsoever. She would drive 2.5 hours, get in the car, watch me get handed a certificate, and turn around and go right back home, and have no regrets about it. At the drop of a hat, she would drive several hours to watch me play in baseball tournaments all around the Midwest, and she would stay for one game in 90-degree heat, turn around and go back home, and tell me how much she enjoyed herself. She would tune in to every single one of my high school football broadcasts. My high school has a thing where we broadcast the football games on the internet, and I've announced every game for the last few years. At the start of every game, right at kickoff, I would always get a text from my Bubby that she was tuning in, and she thought I was doing a great job. This past year, we had a pretty rough season. We didn't win many games. It was difficult to announce some of the blowouts, that's for sure. After every game, I would get a call from Bubby, who had a lot of constructive criticism to get off her chest. The thing is, the constructive criticism was not for me. She was calling to criticize and question the play calling and the coaching in the games. My 73-year-old grandmother was calling to complain to me, and I quote, "Why can't they run a short pass pattern once in a while?" The funniest thing to me is she was absolutely right, and my Bubby as head coach probably would have won us the conference. People who don't know my Bubby have come up to me a lot in the last few weeks, offered their condolences, and asked what they can do to help. And a lot of times they ask the same question: what are you going to miss about her? That is a very long list that we could be here for a long time, so I've condensed it a little bit. There are 3 things I'm going to miss most about my Bubby: her smile, her laugh, and her meatloaf. She had a fantastic smile, a laugh you could pick out from anywhere, and I'm fairly certain years of eating her meatloaf is the reason my baseball coach refers to me as not a speedster. Those are the first reasons that come to mind, but I'm jealous of each and every one of you who had so many reasons to love her. I had 18 and a half fantastic years with my Bubby, but there are so many people here who had more, and I will be eternally jealous of that. My father had 48 years of great times. My grandfather had 56 years by her side. My Aunt Andy is the luckiest person I know, getting to spend all 73 years of my Bubby's time on this earth. She touched everyone in this room deeply, and I can say with strong certainty that she lives on in all of us. Let today be a celebration of my Bubby, a party, if you will. Janice Greeenberger sure knew how to throw a good party. She prided herself on it greatly. Hosting was her favorite thing in the world. Any excuse to gather her family and friends, she took. Any excuse to invite people over and play host, she took. All of you here together would have been her dream scenario. I ask all of you, on behalf of my Bubby, please enjoy yourself today. Grab some food, grab a drink. She wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Thank you, and Bubby, I love you always.
Janice once told me she liked me because I made her laugh. And I adored and admired Janice because she was my voice of reason in so many ways. Janice and I met over 62 years ago. In all that time, we never had an angry word spoken to each other. She was my hotline for knitting and especially crocheting. I'd call her and ask her, "Is this the crochet hotline for dummies?" I'd send her a picture via phone of my problem, or in most cases, my mistake, and sure enough, she would solve it for me. During high school, we helped each other out in times of boyfriend stress. There was a time when a limitation was put on Janice and Paul dating, and I even involved my mother in this. We would pick up Janice, bring her over to my house, and Paul would be waiting at the curb. She'd hop out, get in Paul's car. They'd come back at a certain hour. My mother would hop in the car with Janice and myself. I didn't drive, and we would bring her home. This exchange would go on a couple of times. We were good girls, and that's the extent of our badness, at least what I know about. Paul? When Rich and I moved to Evanston 11 years ago, I couldn't get my head around setting up my kitchen. Again, on the phone, I told her that with my work and with tons of boxes facing me, it was overwhelming. I said something that I often said to her in phone conversations. "I wish you lived next door to me." I wanted her to help me organize my kitchen. I knew she could do it. Next thing I knew, Janice and Paul were coming in that weekend, and she was there to help. You have to picture this. Janice sat on a chair in my kitchen, had me open up the empty cabinets, take a few measurements, and the next morning we were at the Container Store when it opened. She directed me up and down the aisles, telling me what to put in the cart. We came back to the apartment. She sat down in that same chair. I opened up the boxes, and she told me where everything would go. She had a talent for organizing, and my kitchen still is in its original plan. How does one say goodbye to such a good friend? I really don't know. We were fortunate enough to grow up with a club of girls, and later in life we referred to ourselves as the girls. Our club was called Friends Forever. And I can tell you, from all corners of the U.S., we have come together with support and love for our dear friend. We will miss you, my dear friend.
Very beautiful and deeply moving words from each of you. We thank you for sharing them with us, sharing your celebration of Janice's life and of her love. Our rabbis taught Dvarim hayotzim min halev nichnasim lalev, that words which come from the heart penetrate the heart. And your words penetrate our hearts today. Janice was a loving wife to you, Paul. A loving mother to you, Marcy and Bart and Pamela. A loving grandmother to you, Hannah and Benjamin. A loving sister to you, Andrea and Aaron. A loving daughter-in-law to Josephine. A loving sister-in-law and aunt and cousin to so many. All of you are left now, after loving her in life, to revere her memory in death. And I pray that God should send you comfort and strength and healing in this difficult time. I know you'll always carry your memories of Janice with you. And that just as we heard today, they will bring a lot of joy and laughter, a lot of love. Janice was born April 2nd, 1945, and grew up in Cleveland Heights. Andrea, the two of you grew up on Euclid Heights Boulevard, 6 doors down from Park Synagogue, though your family was always members of Community Temple Beth Am, leaders in the congregation there, ultimately president. You and your sister went to Wiley and then to Cleveland Heights High School. And then after high school, Janice headed off to Ohio State, where she earned a degree in accounting. Andrea, you and your sister had a beautiful, close, loving relationship growing up, sharing in so many beautiful experiences together. You played a lot together. You went to camp together. You both wanted to go to Hebrew school, which we should note was not the norm for girls in those days. That, Andrea, was the way you said it to me yesterday. I might add it wasn't the norm for the boys either to want to go to Hebrew school. But you wanted to go, and your sister wanted to go. No doubt because of the warmth and energy in the Jewish home that your parents created, and their involvement in synagogue and their leadership that set an example for the two of you. Your mother worked, however, and she wasn't able to drive you to Hebrew school, and so she booked a standing order for a cab to take you both to Hebrew school 2 days a week. And you did. You went, and you studied, and you learned, and ultimately you both became bat mitzvah. Also not common in those days when bat mitzvah was just beginning to take root, and you were among the first girls to do so. There were only a handful of others that year. I know that your memories of your sister bring you much joy. Hold tight to them, and may God send you comfort. Paul, Janice chased after you when you were a senior in high school. She was determined, and she was consistent in her pursuit. She knew what she wanted, and she got it. You were 17 at the time, and she was 16. She was, you said, attractive and personable and had a wonderful sense of humor. She was intelligent and creative, and you were hooked. You went to Ohio State together, and you were married after graduation in December 1966. The two of you enjoyed an extraordinarily close and loving relationship. You were married for 52 years, and together, as we heard, for 56. And you were an incredible team together, devoted to each other, doing everything together, supporting each other. Together you shared in life's burdens and celebrated life's blessings, and you built a beautiful home and family and a legacy of love. These two beautiful children, and then Pamela added that family, and then grandchildren, all part of Janice's legacy. Janice was a loving mother. But in a way, your mom helped bring you and Pamela together. She convinced you to move back to St. Louis, that you could get a better job there. And if not for that move, you and Pamela might not have met. You lived in St. Louis for many years, and you would pop in to see your mom all the time. You said maybe a couple of weeks might go by occasionally when you weren't there, then you'd be there 3, 4, 5 times in a week. And she and your father Paul, they loved your being in town, being able to share everything with you, being able to share in your children. You told me a beautiful story that there is a popular frozen custard and yogurt place, Ted Drew's, that is near your home, Bart, about a 40-minute drive from where you, Paul, and Janice lived. when Hannah was born, Bart, your mother called you up and said, "We're going to Ted Drew's. Can we bring you something?" They did like long drives, and they did like Ted Drew's, but you knew what this was about. They wanted to see Hannah. Bart and Marcy, your mother was so very proud of both of you. She loved being with you, playing cards with you, celebrating holidays with you, watching your accomplishments. And you loved to share those accomplishments with her because you knew how proud they made her. You had a very beautiful, close relationship with her when you were young, and as you grew, that relationship only got better. And you already heard how Janice was the best bubby in the world. And Ben and Hannah, you shared how you loved coming over to her house with the TV blasting Law & Order at full volume. You said she loved her crime shows and she was deaf. In fact, so hard of hearing that at one time you played a little game where you kept saying words, waiting for her to respond, getting louder and louder, until finally she said, "What did you say?" That's as much as I'll share. Whenever you came over to visit, she always had a meatloaf ready. And you already heard from Ben about the meatloaf. Whenever there was a family gathering, she would make meatloaf. She would make 2 meatloafs, in fact, a regular one and then a spicy one for those in the family that liked it spicy. And when you came over to visit, she would stick the meatloaf in your hands as you left and tell you to take it with you. And she would say, "Call or text me and let me know how it was. How did you like it?" She knew, of course, that you loved it. It was just her way of making another opportunity to talk with you. And as everyone has already heard, you love to play cards together. She was very competitive. In fact, Bart, you once shared that you once took Ben to miniature golf and you let him win. And then you made the mistake of sharing that piece of information with your mother. Oh, Paul, was that you? Oh, I confused it. Paul, you took Ben or Bart? Who did you take? You took Ben to play miniature golf, and then you told Janice. And her response was, "How could you do that?" She couldn't imagine. She loved the two of you, Ben and Hannah. Loved to watch you play sports, to be at your school functions. Hannah, you shared that your favorite bubby food was her mac and cheese. It was not from a box and not some simple recipe either. It was her own original recipe, and it was a complicated one that was hard to make. It had a crumbly crust and layers of 6 different cheeses, and it was so good. She was a great cook. More on that in a moment. And 3 times in the last 3 years, Bart, you won a trip, and each time, your mother came to watch the grandchildren. They were old enough by that time to watch themselves, but she wanted to be with them. You already heard how much Janice loved to entertain. And Hannah, when you were old enough to handle delicate items, you were given the job of setting the table, and you loved that job and took such pride in it. It was, you said, a big production, with 3 plates stacked on top of each other at each setting and multiple forks, knives, and spoons, each in their proper place. And of course, those crystal knife rests. How many people even use knife rests anymore? But Janice did. She collected them. She would buy them on eBay. She must have had 75 of them. And Paul, you would say to her, why do you need another one? You have so many. And she would say, but I don't have this one. 75 knife rests, but Janice always knew exactly which ones she wanted to use each time. And Hannah, if you picked the wrong one, she let you know. She loved hosting Passover, Thanksgiving, Rosh Hashanah, all the holidays, and she looked for excuses to host parties. Her cooking was amazing, her ribs and her Passover rolls. Those Passover rolls were also very hard to make. And she loved to decorate the house for Hanukkah and to make latkes. Janice loved football. Andrew, when you and Janice were growing up, your parents had season tickets to the Browns. They would take you. And Paul, when you married Janice, you would use those tickets to go to the games as well. And later, when you moved to St. Louis, you got season tickets to the Cardinals first and then later to the Rams. Janice even made you upgrade to better seats. And as you heard, she knew the plays. Yes, she loved football, but baseball not so much. Still, Paul, she always went to one game a year with you, and at that game she would order a beer and peanuts, though she never finished the beer. But she'd always say, when in Rome. She also loved to golf, and the two of you golfed together. She even won a tournament. The prize was a golf ball, and she was never so happy. You see the beautiful kippot and the bow tie that Bart spoke about so lovingly. She was very talented in textiles, crocheting and knitting, needlepoint. She even knitted a 3/4 length coat for Pamela, and she won many awards for her handiwork. And how she loved her gardening. She had a butterfly garden, and she loved the butterflies that she would attract. She carefully tended the plants that would attract them, and that would attract hummingbirds, which she loved to see. She grew flowers and some vegetables, and she had flower pots filled with herbs that she would harvest for her cooking. She was, at different points in her life, active in a number of organizations. In Ort, she volunteered at the Jewish Home for the Aged. She worked for a number of years at Community Temple Beth Am, her family's synagogue, as the accountant. And she volunteered for various LPGA tournaments as well, helping put those tournaments together. There are so many wonderful memories of that miles game that you would play when you would drive long distances as a family. Everyone had to guess how many miles you were from home. And it was Janice who could always answer within a mile or two. And Paul, you and Janice loved to travel. You took many wonderful trips together to St. Thomas in Florida, California and Arizona, to China, to Toronto, to Hawaii for your 40th anniversary. And then there was that big road trip out west. You had different interests, so when you would travel, you would go off to do your thing and explore. She would go antiquing and shopping. But you didn't need a big formal vacation. Every fall, you just got in the car and drove for some 6 hours without any predetermined destination. Paul, you would just say, pack your bags and we'll decide along the way. And in that way, you visited Chicago and Memphis, Little Rock, Kansas City, and more. There are wonderful memories of seeing the eclipse together in St. Louis in 2017. Together in chairs in the perfect location away from the crowds. So many wonderful times shared. Janice was very special. She was extremely smart, very clever. How clever? She could do the New York Times crossword with a pen. She knew how to solve problems. She knew how to repurpose things. She was patient until she wasn't. She could be feisty, but she was loving and kind and generous, humorous, also stubborn and independent. Above all else, she was loving and family-oriented. And family-wise, Janice could not have been blessed more than she was with this extraordinary family. Just as she showered each of you with love, you returned that love manyfold, relishing every moment that you had with her, sharing in the joys of life, sharing in the joys of family, celebrating the gift of her presence. but for all the blessings of family. Janice's life was filled with difficult challenges from her health, as you've heard. Nonetheless, she did not let any of those challenges keep her down. She had great determination, and she was not going to let health dictate her life. She overcame all of that, never letting it slow her except for eventually giving up golf, determined to live her life fully and to love and care for her family fully. And then this past September came that one final challenge. That terrible, aggressive cancer that took her from us. Yet even during that time, she remained strong, defiant, as Bart said, holding off even the Grim Reaper. And she remained alert and aware during that time, able even then to enjoy being with you, have you there in her presence. You shared with me that the medical director had received his degree at Ohio State. And when he came into the room, you all did an OH, she did an IO. He couldn't believe it. He said he was going to write it up for the Alumni Journal and let others know. Andrea, you came down to be with your sister for 4 days, to stay by her side. And Marcy, Bart, Ben, and Hannah, for the last month, you never let her sleep alone. One of you was always there. If she needed her back scratched or a glass of water or to be repositioned, you were there. You even did leg exercises with her to help improve her circulation. Hannah, you shared that you said goodbye to your bubby 3 times. First, during review week, when you were sure that she would be gone. And then you came back after review week and she was still there and she asked you how your test was. You said, well, I didn't have it yet. It's next week. And you said a second goodbye. You rearranged your schedule during your finals. And after the finals, you came back a 3rd time. And she wanted to know how you did on your exams. And when you told her that you got an A in accounting, she just smiled and said, oh my goodness, that's so amazing. She was so proud of you, especially if you're pursuing an accounting degree. And Ben, you shared that when Hannah was studying for those tests in the hospice room, she was reviewing her flashcards. And Marcy, you said, see if I know a couple. So Hannah asked a question out loud. And then, Marcy, before you could answer, all of you heard this faint voice answer the question correctly. It was Bubby. It was Janice. There in her hospital bed, near death, with no food. At a point at which most people couldn't think straight. Janice was answering accounting questions. And so you began to quiz her. And even in that state, she knew most of the answers. She held on as long as she could. She was determined not to miss a day that she could spend with all of you, because she loved you all so much. And then she passed 3 days, Paul, after your 52nd wedding anniversary. There was no clock in the room and no calendar. But somehow she knew. She had waited. An omen, a sign of her love for you, that she wanted to complete that 52nd year together with you before she departed. Janice leaves a beautiful legacy. She taught you the meaning of kindness and generosity. She taught you to pursue your dreams. She taught you to be the bigger person and always rise above pettiness. Most of all, she taught you the importance of family. She taught you to love each other, to care for each other, to watch out for each other just as she did, and most important of all, to celebrate the gifts of life together. She taught you to find joy in each other. And every time that you find joy in each other, you will feel her presence with you. You know, when a man and a woman go on a date together, and sometimes it happens the man might give a rose, a flower to the woman he's dating, and she might take that flower and open up a book and place it inside and press it to save that flower, to remember that moment. And then years later, if she were to open that book, the flower would be there, flattened, dry, desiccated. But is that flower dead? No, that flower is not dead. That flower is alive with the memories of the love that was shared, of the magic of the time spent together. So take your memories of Janice and press them close to your heart. Hold on to them. Let the images, the fragrance, the love lift you, support you, sustain you, so you can always celebrate her presence with you, even now. May her memory be for a blessing. And we say together, Amen. We rise now for the memorial prayer.
אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע המסירים, את נשמת צ'רנה פייגו בת דוד ראובן צרה ומנדל, שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן, תהא מנוחתה. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתיריה בסדק כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה. ונאמר אמן.
Exalted, compassionate God, we pray that you grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of our beloved Janice, who has gone to her eternal home. O merciful one, we ask that she find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May the Lord be her portion. May she rest in peace. And we say it together, Amen. Interment will follow at the Beit Olam Cemetery, after which the family will return to the residence of Melissa Kanowitz, 5435 Meadowwood Boulevard in Lyndhurst. Today, following interment until 8 p.m. with a service at 7. Tuesday, 1 to 4 p.m. and 7 to 9 p.m. with a service at 7. Beginning Wednesday, the family will receive at the residence of Andrea and Aaron Kanowitz, 4457 Bain Tree Road, University Heights. Wednesday and Thursday, 1 to 5 and 7 to 9, with a service at 7. Friday, 1 to 4 p.m. Friends who wish may contribute to the Bone and Schaefer Garden Foundation, care of B'nai Yeshurun Congregation.